Hi, hello, shalom, my name is Haley Beckel, and I accidentally gave myself food poisoning. Yeah, that happened. So anyways, today we are going to be talking about Lord Timothy Dexter, the luckiest idiot in history. I think this is by far one of the most entertaining stories to date, and I can't wait to tell it to you. So let's get started. So Lord Timothy Dexter wasn't actually a lord to begin with. He was born in Malden, Massachusetts on January 22nd, 1748. He grew up very poor and didn't have much of an education. So at the ripe age of 8 years old, he went to go work on a farm. Then at the age of 14, he decided to move to Charleston, South Carolina and become an apprentice craftsman. A little while later, he finishes his apprenticeship and he gets a freeman suit, which he sells for $8.20. Then he moves to Newport, where he buys some land and finds a wife. He marries a witch widow by the name of Elizabeth Frothingham, who had 4 children and a house. She was 9 years his senior. And Timothy decides to use his new wife's basement as a shop, where he sells leather goods such as trousers, gloves, hide, and blubber. And he makes a pretty penny off of his sales, but he invests it all in continental currency. And continental currency was the first American dollar, which entirely lost its value after the Revolutionary War. But somehow Timothy's stupid business move proves to be quite profitable. After the US Constitution is ratified, continental dollars were allowed to be traded in for treasury bonds, 1% face value. So in other words, he became very, very rich. And he did the same thing with European currencies after getting some bad advice from a neighbor who had a grudge against him. There were many of those. And somehow that makes him even richer. But his wife finds him to be so much of an embarrassment that she relocates to another neighborhood. And a little while later, Timothy gets some more bad business advice to sell warming pans in the West Indies. And warming pans were devices used to heat beds. And this was, of course, really stupid because the West Indies was known for year-long hot weather. But Timothy had a plan up his sleeve. He decided to rebrand the warming pans as ladles and sell them to sugar and molasses plantation owners. And the things sold like hotcakes. And he made a fortune. But this wasn't the last time he was tricked. Another colleague told him that there was a huge demand for coal in Newcastle. But that was obviously a lie because there was a huge coal mine there. But when Timothy arrived, he had another magical stroke of luck. The coal miners were on strike, so he had no problem getting rid of all that coal. Some historians argue that at this point in Timothy's life, he was becoming quite the knowledgeable businessman, and that his choices were not a result of bad advice, but rather carefully planned. I personally like to think that this was just a wild dude with a lot of luck, and here's why. The guy publishes his own memoir. It was called A Pickle for Knowing Ones, or Plain Truths in a Homespun Dress. The best part is, the book was atrocious. It was riddled with spelling errors and completely devoid of punctuation. And he didn't try to sell his books. He actually would try to hand them out as gifts to passerbys. And when people read it, they were so amused by his writing that there was enough demand for a second edition. And in the second edition, the editor included a full page at the end of the book full of punctuation marks, to which they said that the reader could pepper them in as they pleased. And with all this money, Timothy not only invested into his business, but also his estate. So he hired a bunch of artists to make him 40 wooden statues, giant statues of historical figures, like King Louis XVI and John Hancock. But his greatest piece was the one of himself. And Timothy also liked to have outcasts hang around his house, such as a woman with 2 sets of teeth and a pet chicken. But the craziest part of the story is the fact that Timothy faked his own death just because he wanted to see how people would react. So he plans this whole funeral and he bribes his family to go along with it. And apparently he didn't think that his wife cried enough, so he beat her. Shortly after his fake funeral, Timothy died at the age of 59. He died on October 26th, 1806. And his will divided up the estate between his wife, his family, and his friends. He even left some money for the poor. As for the wooden statues, the majority of them were damaged in this big storm of 1815, and the ones that remained were auctioned off for pennies. And that is the story of Lord Timothy Dexter. And right here we have some 18th century fried chicken. I actually got the recipe from a channel here on YouTube called Townsend, and they specialize in 18th century recipes. So I'm hoping this will be pretty good. Cheers. It's interesting. Does it taste like fried chicken? No, but it's not bad. It's interesting. That is the best word I can use to describe this. It's like a meaty pancake. I kind of like it. I think I like it. Well, that is it for now. If you enjoyed this, please let me know. If you did not enjoy this, please let me know. If there's anything else food-related content you want me to do, to try, please let me know. I am going to eat as many of these as I can right now until my stomach bursts. Bye-bye.